Shop the Sherwin-Williams Memorial Day sale and get 30% off paints and stains May 16th through the 26th. With prices starting at $34.29, it's the perfect time to transform your space with color. Whether you're looking to revamp your bedroom, living room, or home office, we have you covered with bold hues, soothing neutrals, and everything in between. Shop the sale online or visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, broadcasting live every Thursday, 6 to 8 p.m. Central from Panama City Beach, Florida, home of the world's most beautiful beaches. I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining me on my weekly broadcast. Every week, I'll feature some of the best instructors, coaches, authors, and entrepreneurs in the golf business today. I begin with a great discussion on Coach's Corner, followed by an insightful interview with my special guest. So let's get started by introducing tonight's Coach's Corner panel. All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and I'm very excited to have everybody joining me this evening. And we got a great show for you. A little bit shorter, just a quick couple of program notes. A little bit shorter tonight. I did not book a guest for this evening, so we're just going to have a special Coach's Corner panel this evening, and then we may run a few minutes longer than normal, but we won't do the full 2-hour show this evening. And the other part of the program note is one of the panelists, Paul Castor, who was scheduled to be tonight, unfortunately was feeling a little bit under the weather, so he's not going to be joining us. But I got two great guys who are pretty regular on the show every month, and really excited to have these guys on. And this will be their last show for the 2020 season, and they'll be getting ready for the holidays. And then next year in March, everybody's going to start up again here on the panel discussion. So we're really looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to a little bit of a break myself. So, all right, let me remind everybody, of course, that Golf Talk Live is brought to you by the iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips Magazine. iGolf Sports is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing top-quality programming designed to attract the golfing enthusiast. And, of course, Golf Tips, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, offering insightful reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top PGA and LPGA teacher professionals, all designed to help improve your game from tee to green. So subscribe today. Visit golftipsmag.com. All right, joining me on the panel tonight is John Hughes, a good friend of mine. He's a PGA Master Professional, as well as the honorary president of the North Florida PGA section. He was also a recipient of the 2013 PGA of America Horton Smith Award, and he's also one of the senior editors and a Golf Tips Magazine top 25 instructor, as well as part of the Golf Tips advisory staff. Also, another good friend is Pete Buchanan. He is the founder, director, and owner of instruction for the Plain Simple Golf LLC, which houses Plain Simple Golf Circuit and the Simple Swing Repeater Training Brace. And he has been teaching this great game for 30-plus years. So a couple of veterans, if you will, on the Coach's Corner panel tonight, and two of my favorite guests. So, guys, welcome to Coach's Corner panel here on Golf Talk Live.
Thanks, Ted. It's good to be here.
All right, I appreciate it, guys. And as I mentioned, this is going to be the last show for 2020. We're getting ready for a holiday season. We're not sure what's going to be going on this holiday with everything going on, but we're not going to go there. We're here to talk golf tonight, but we'll see what happens. Main thing is we want everybody to be safe this holiday season. So take extra precautions if you're getting together with your family. Make sure that you guys take the necessary precautions. We don't want to have anybody get sick or what have you through the season. So, all right, I'm going to go in the order that I introduced you guys. So, John, I'm going to start off with you, and I may mix up the rotation as we go along. This show is really about, I guess, sort of a reflection on 2020. As we look back on 2020, a lot of things happened. Of course, the pandemic was instrumental in creating some devastating issues for some, and for others, an opportunity really to sort of regroup, rethink, and sort of reassess how they're going to approach things. And the golf industry, as I've mentioned here over the last several weeks, has really been very, very fortunate we've been really blessed, to say the least, during this difficult time, with folks not really having a lot of things to be able to do. We've been very fortunate that golf has been one of the few games or sports out there that has sort of a built-in social distancing, if you will, and many people looking for some sort of a respite from the house and from the kids and everything else going on, just wanted an opportunity to get out and do something, and golf answered the call. So, John, I'm going to start with you, and what I'd like for you to do is to reflect a little bit over this year, and then, Pete, I'm going to get you to do the same thing. And one of the things I want you to touch on, you're certainly welcome to ad-lib with some other things as well, but in that I would like you to also include what were some of the biggest improvements that you've seen from your students this past season, and what were some of the other things that you reflect on in 2020?
Thanks, Ted. Always an honor to be on the program. Pete, always a great pleasure to be with you as well. Looking forward to the conversation. 2020 reflections. Let me start with my clientele, because those are the people nearest and dearest to my heart, both professionally and personally. What I've seen positively from my clientele is a more positive nature, realizing that they play such a special game that allows for social distancing, that allows them to be out in the fresh air. I've seen a renewal in a lot of my clients, a renewal of their commitment to play, their passion, a renewal in somewhat. I've seen some people get competitive who have never been competitive before. I just had a client just barely missed the semifinals in a Florida State Golf Association tournament this week, who had never, ever played in a competitive tournament prior to 2020. So I think I look at things more opportunistic. I know my clientele does too. And 2020's provided that opportunity for my clientele, but I would also say I've seen a lot of new people, a lot of new faces, a lot of new golfers, not only with me for coaching, but just on the golf course in general. I've seen more families and more kids and more spouses who would normally not be there, out there having a good time. Literally taking advantage, believe it or not. They did a self-education and said, you know what, I'm not going to go out there when it's super hectic. I'll go out there at 4 in the afternoon, and they're having a ball. There's people laughing. There's people carrying on. And it's not about that the ball went somewhere. It's all about spending time with one another in an environment that is safe. And I think going forward, if we see some things have to shut down again for whatever reason, I really don't see golf doing that. I think golf spearheaded a lot of the initiatives that other sports, that other industries, that other companies actually followed. We were a really, really good leader and a really good cornerstone to how to operate safely and somewhat normally in a really messed up year.
Yeah, some excellent points that you touch on there, and it really is about it is about the students, for not just the teaching professionals out there and the coaches, but for all of the staff at golf courses. We spend so much time, in this game, always looking at how can we improve, how can we get more distance, what can we do to tune up the game and play our best. That sometimes in that quest for what we like to call, golf swing or golf game perfection, that we forget sometimes just to have fun. And I think, if anything, the one takeaway that I like to see and have seen this year is, just as you pointed out, John, is people laughing, having a good time. And, yeah, maybe the ball didn't go where we wanted it to go, or maybe we didn't, execute shots that we wanted to. But at the end of the day, we had a good time under a difficult situation. And that's, as you said, moving forward, I really do. I hope that the industry takes note of that and puts more emphasis on everybody getting out there and having a good time and having lots of laughs and having some fun, and not so much on trying to perfect everything. Because I think sometimes that can be a very daunting task for the average golfer out there, and sometimes it creates a little unnecessary anxiety. And Lord only knows we have plenty of that going on right now. So it has, as I said earlier, it's sort of been a respite, if you will, for many folks out there. Pete, what about yourself as you reflect back on 2020? I'm sure you've seen lots of improvements. And what was your overall assessment, if you will, of the 2020 year for you?
Well, I think strange would be a good word to start with. You know, it's definitely been a different kind of year for 2020. But I think more than anything else, you know, I like what John was talking about. There is a big positive nature out there, I think, with golf, and you can see it. The range that I'm at is, you know, all summer long was quite full, especially in the evenings. So people being able to get out and, you know, get to hitting some balls and practicing. But I think, for me, I think from most of the ones that I was coaching, I saw I'd say a renewed purpose to what they're trying to do. I think with them being able to play versus doing anything else, you know, they really showed an interest on trying to improve, to get better, to focus in on what they're trying to do and make it, you know, a designated purpose for their practice, and especially from the collegiate players, which was, you know, their seasons were sort of chopped up a bit. And, you know, so they only had 3 tournaments in the fall. And so, you know, a definite renewed focus on what they're doing. And it was fun to be a part of that. So I think more than anything else, you know, with the growth that it was seeing, I think people are you know, sort of taking advantage of it's just something that they can do versus a lot of things they couldn't do. And so I think we're seeing a renowned, you know, presence of more people doing it, but I think a nice positive focus and purpose for, you know, trying to get better and you know, make the game more fun, which is, you know, what we're all trying to do with them anyway. So, you know, skills, but, you know, make it fun to be out there.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the key right there. Is I think once people, if people are having fun, you know, we don't mind doing a little bit of work. But if it's all work and no play, as they always say, then it gets to a point where it no longer is enjoyable. And I think one thing, I think we would probably all agree on this, the one thing that was really I found to be quite interesting this year was many golfers who, you know, maybe kind of stayed away from the game over the last several years. Maybe, you know, partially could have been an age issue. Maybe they're getting a little bit older and just didn't, you know, feel like getting out anymore. Or maybe their game just wasn't up to snuff, and they've kind of, you know, put the clubs away a little bit more than what they normally would. They were kind of rejuvenated. A lot of, you know, golfers that haven't played in a number of years seemed to come out of the woodwork and said, you know what, I've got nothing to do. It's not going to kill me. Let's get out and play some golf. Let's go out and have some fun. So I think it was kind of a resurgence of some golfers that maybe haven't been out for a little while. I don't know. What do you guys think, John?
Definitely that. There are people that purchased coaching programs for me years ago that I thought may have dropped face of the earth, and I'm getting texts and phone calls, and I'm like, wow, where have you been? And life just has a way of changing your priorities. And with COVID, these people reemerged. There were many, many new clients I've had this year that have basically said, hey, I'm coming back after 10 years. I have a student I'm working with the past couple of days I finish up with tomorrow who's just that. For 10 years, he's been away from the game. And now he's not only wanting to get back in, he's wanting to make a serious commitment to it, not necessarily to play competitively, but to have it become a little bit more priority in his life. And I'm seeing a lot of that. We're seeing in the tee sheet where people are showing up more often. We have, I know at Falconspire, there's been some people call in recently whose last activity there was 4, 5, 6, even 10 years ago. So yeah, we're seeing some renewal is the way I would phrase it. What the renewal is, I don't think many people are really keeping track of it. I think what we are doing a better job of now than, say, after the recession or after the Tiger era of growth, is trying to figure out how to retain these people, how to engage them the minute they walk in the door, getting their opinions as to why they left, getting their opinions as to why they're coming back. I think what I'm seeing industry-wide, as far as North Florida and the other people I know across the country, there's more of an emphasis to these people who are renewing, coming back after an extended break, to honestly ask them, what can we do to keep you there? Which has been very refreshing. We just have to follow up on this information. We can't be sitting back, letting it go in one ear and out the other. This is our, as an industry, might be our last chance to do good by these people.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And Pete, just to get your thoughts on it as well, I'm sure you probably have experienced something similar up in your neck of the woods. And I think just to add, to John's point is, and I've said this many, many times over the last several months, it's great that we've gotten this booster shot in the arm, as it were, for golf. Whether it was accidental or intentional or what have you, we don't know at this point. But it is going to be key moving forward, as John suggests, on what we're going to do to keep them here. Because, we don't want to rest on our laurels. So what about you? Have you noticed a similar trend up where you are, where maybe some golfers that haven't been out there for a little while are suddenly sort of feeling rejuvenated, or just coming out and just re-engaging in the game?
Oh, there's no question. As I said, the range that I'm at was, basically weekdays every evening. It's just loaded. Every stall's taken. People are waiting to hit, and that's something I haven't seen for a long, long time. And so, yeah, there's definitely a lot more people out, and a diverse amount of people too, young, old, men, women, kids. Everybody was out there, so it was really cool to see. So I know that definitely there's been a jump in it, and and as John was talking about, I mean, how do we now, go about continuing to keep those people out there? So hopefully their interest is big enough to keep them out there, and we can keep them playing and keep them moving along, and hopefully that things don't turn crazily enough in 2021 that it continues to thrive and continues to grow.
Yeah, I think, and it'll be interesting to see, when the season is, and I know it's not over officially for everybody, but I'm talking about 2020. It'll be interesting to see what some of the stats come out and where the growth has really been. Has it been a resurgence of golfers gone by sort of thing, in addition to just the new? Obviously, there's going to be some new golfers. We know that, but it'll be interesting to see if they're able to. And hopefully, somebody's been out there gathering that information. It'll be interesting to see how many golfers that have maybe been away, for at least maybe three or more years. I mean, if they're away for a year or something, sometimes things can happen. But if you've got golfers that are coming 3 to 5 or even 10 years, as John, as you pointed out, are suddenly coming back to the game, it would be interesting to find out why. What is it that brought them back? Because not too many people walk away from something they really enjoy doing, unless there's a specific reason. So it'd be interesting to see what some of those stats hold and just how many did come back to the game. John, I'm going to come back to you on this. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to say, I normally don't interject in this, but I think I remembered something that I heard last week from someone within headquarters at PGA stating that one of the reasons we are hearing, which is extremely interesting, is that we've always said that we are thinking the barriers keeping people away has been time and money. And a lot of the feedback coming back is saying, you know what, it has been, but what's really kept me away is feeling welcome and feeling just part of a group. I'm a big part of a nest, or a bigger nest of other people. with the same interests. And it goes to the point of how communal golf can be, even with the social distancing requirements, that you're actually part of a group for a little bit that you can share something with. And as much as we've thought about these barriers of time and money being these big things, I think what we're seeing also with COVID is we can break down those barriers just by being a little bit more warm, welcoming, and realizing how much the shared experience of golf can be of value to anybody.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I do want to move on, but I just want to address one quick thing. You know, any business, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's retail sales, whether it's something like what we're doing, customer service is paramount, even more so than cost. People will spend a little extra if they feel they're getting value for their money. And it's not just the quality of the golf lesson, but it's the interaction, the communication that they're having with their instructor. And also the experience, John, which essentially is what you're alluding to, is their experience coming out to the course or to the venue that they're going to be at. If they feel like they're just sort of corralled through and don't really feel that there's, a good, obviously, some member clubs and things like that are a little bit different. They get to know their members a little bit more, but when you have new golfers coming in, they're a little bit skittish. They're not sure what to expect. And the last thing you want is not to have that sort of warm, fuzzy feeling coming through into the pro shop. So, that's a key thing. And that's something I think that every industry, not just the golf industry, really has to focus on, because I think that, to be honest, is something that has been lost in many cases, certainly not all the way across the board, but in many cases, I think that's something that people value, is they want to know that their business is actually worth something, and not just collecting the money and moving you down the road, so to speak. So those are things that we're going to have to really watch on. John, I want to come back to you real quick here and with the next question. And I think we would all agree that areas like the grip and the stance, posture, balance, ball position, all those things are key to building a solid foundation. I think we would all agree. Jack Nicklaus famously said that those were things that he worked on beginning of every season, is his fundamentals. He wanted to make sure that his foundation was solid each season when he came out. But are there anything else that you would put, not necessarily equally important, but also important for students to understand if they want to become a better player?
The time commitment that's needed, it just doesn't happen overnight. I've said this on this program before. If I had Cheech and Chong's magic dust for Santa's reindeer, I certainly wouldn't be sprinkling it on people. It takes time. It takes a commitment. I've sort of coined a phrase over the past year, thanks to COVID, are you dedicated to the discipline of the details? And that is what makes the difference between some really elite players and just average players. It makes the difference between the average member player at a member club versus the really good member player at a member club. The dedication it takes from a time standpoint of view, deflecting the distractions, making some sacrifices. Like anything, if you want to be good at anything, you're going to make a few sacrifices along the way. And I think that's probably the most overlooked aspect of what these men and women do on TV, and the dedication and the commitment to what they do from a discipline to detail standpoint of view. It's incredible when you see it in person. It's inspiring. It actually makes me more motivated to get my game gear when I see it. But to realize how it fits into your priorities is really key, and that probably keeps somebody somewhere from time to time from reaching their potential. As a coach, I'm always trying to have someone really understand that. It is about fun, and as you manage your time wisely, you can have a lot more fun, but it is about committing more time than what you initially realized.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. What people and we've talked about this obviously many times, but what's always interesting is when it comes to someone's job, whether they're an executive, preparing for a meeting, whether in sales, and presenting a product or service to a potential client, we'll spend time. We'll prepare. We'll spend whatever it takes to make sure that when we get in front of that individual or individuals, that we're properly prepared. And what always baffles me, Pete, when it comes to golfers, certainly not all of them, but many of them, they don't seem to take that same willingness to put effort. They want everything to come quickly. They want everything to sort of find that Band-Aid, as we've often referred to here in the program, that quick fix to get what they need. And it just always baffles me that these same people who seem to get it all together in preparation for a meeting or what have you don't want to do the same thing for their golf game. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but going back to the question that I gave John, and you're certainly welcome to add on to that as well, but our fundamentals are key in building a good golf swing and so forth, but there are other things as well. In addition to what John talked about, is there anything that you can think of that students need to understand if they want to be a better player?
Well, I think more than anything else, they've got to understand impact and how it relates to them. They've got to understand their own swing, their own movements, and how what they do affects club and ball contact. And I think the better they understand that, going back to your scenario with somebody getting ready for a presentation with their business, they understand that very well. I don't think they have the same understanding of their golf game as they do as their business. If they did, it would be a different scenario. I think they would be better prepared for what they're trying to do. So that's one of the things that I always try to do is try to incorporate the fundamentals into how they affect the impact. Grip, aim, stance, posture. Every one of those has a direct correlation to a part of the impact. And the better they can understand how that affects them and their game, I think it's going to take them further than they could ever go before. And so it's more than just being able to go out and hit balls and understand, the face was open. But now you got to know why. But now you need to know the direct cause. Why is it open? If you don't get to the roots, you're never going to get anywhere. All you're going to do is continue, as you said, you're going to continue looking for more Band-Aids. And even the best ones in the best of circumstances fall off. They don't stay on very long. So if you get to the root of the problem and understand the scenario that led you to that, I think it's going to make a huge difference. I mean, I had one last night. Posture was the key. If he had a virus in his swing, it was the posture. I mean, we took, about 25 degrees of vertical nature out of the swing by just changing the posture. I mean, one move changed a whole different story. And so getting that understanding, then the next time he goes out, he's going to say, hey, if I don't get my posture right, I'm going to keep digging tunnels. So, you have to give them the fundamentals, but what do those fundamentals control? What do they do? Why do you hold it a certain way? Why do you aim it a certain way? Why are you putting your shoulders here, standing in this posture? Well, there's a reason, because it directly affects the club and ball contact. So I think the better they understand that, I think it's going to make a big catalyst for them to be able to do the same thing in golf that they do in business.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well said, Pete. Thank you. It's interesting. I remember years ago, I had a gentleman who was very successful, had a great business, and wanted to improve his golf game. So we got together and through actually a mutual friend, and he came to me, and I could tell he was not prepared. So I asked him, I said to him, let me ask you something. I said, you have a great product, I assume, that you're selling or service. And he said, yeah. And I said to him, well, if I'm interested, sell me your product. What are you going to tell me? And the first thing that came out, he said, well, I need to get some information from you first. I need to know what your needs are. I need to know this. And he went through a whole checklist. I said, well, that's what you need to do when you take a golf lesson. You need to prepare yourself. You're not just going to sell somebody something without being prepared. knowing what their needs are and finding out whether or not your products or a combination of products that you may have are going to fit the bill. So I said, that's how you have to treat your golf game. And he said, I never really thought of it that way. So I do that with a lot of, especially new clients. Obviously, the ones that have been with me for a little while, they know better. But for new clients that come my way, that's something that I start them off with is I find out whether or not they're prepared. And I ask them point blank, are you prepared for today's lesson? And, obviously they're going to say, well, yeah, I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to it. And I say, well, what did you do to prepare? And I said, and then I throw the same scenario that I just mentioned to you a moment ago with the other gentleman. And you'd be surprised at the percentage of people that come ill-prepared. And, we can practice and we can do all of these things, but if they're not prepared for that lesson, if they're not doing their homework and they're not getting out there when they have taken a lesson and work through some of the issues, Pete, like you just brought up, made a world of difference. Adjustment with the gentleman's posture made a world of difference. But if they're not going to go out and put it in practice afterwards, and they're not going to properly prepare themselves coming in, then they've already sort of falling, behind the line, if you will, and they're going to have a much harder time getting ahead and becoming a better player. And we all want to become a better player, but you've got to be willing to not just put the time in, but you've also got to prepare and get yourself ready. So those are things that, I think that we have to keep in mind, and certainly all of the things, as I mentioned, the grip and the stance and so forth, those are key things that are important. But there's other things as well that we have to be mindful of. And if you're going to take this game up, those are things that you have to certainly start with to get the groundwork. But you've also got to be willing to put the time in, and you've got to be willing to treat it like it's a job and prepare for that job. John, I'm going to come back to you, and I want to ask a question of both of you. I know this is something that normally doesn't happen very often, but occasionally it might happen. You might get somebody that sees you out there working, whether it be on the range or what have you, and they may come up and say, hey, I need a few minutes of your time, and obviously we like to oblige. So if you had 10 minutes, John, with, say, a potential student, what would you say or advise them to do to get the most out of that time with you?
Well, you hit on a good point. Are you prepared for this? You may be asking for it, but are you prepared for this? And sometimes you might not be prepared for what you're going to hear. Most people who are looking for 10-minute fixes are definitely not willing to put the time in, is what I've found over the years. They come not with an open mind. So that's the other question. I'd say, do you have an open mind to this? Because it may be something that you've never ever thought of. It may be even a foreign language to you, but it's based on you doing X, Y, and Z. The real key in a 10-minute can I help you is what is going to impact their game the most right then and there when they go out on the golf course. And for me, I'm always looking for big things, because if you can fix a big thing, the small things follow. And I would say probably 9 times out of 10, I'm going to go along with what the tour players see with the Pro-Am partners they play with. It's alignment. People aim all over the earth thinking the ball's going to end up at your target. And, yeah, it'll end up there sometimes. Your brain and the algorithm it has for your swing sometimes figures it out, but most times not. I think if you can put yourself in a position to aim correctly, a lot of the other things just sort of have to follow. And then if there's enough time in that 10 minutes, can I introduce somebody to the idea of forward shaft lean to compress the golf ball? It just in a really simple couple of 2-minute drills, whether it's a tee in front of a ball or grabbing an alignment stick and having them extend their shaft a little bit over underneath their front arm, just so they can get that feeling, because that is the feeling of wow that they have on the golf course that brings them back. You put those two feelings together in a 10-minute fixer. If they lose it, somewhere down the road during that round, they know at least where they lost it, which is the big question. Where did I lose it? How did I lose it? Well, here's two things that will get you back on the path to where you want to go.
Right, exactly. Pete, one of the things that I try to do, and you may be similar to this. If I've got limited time with somebody like that, I don't necessarily want to try to, because there's not enough time really to do too much of a fix. What I like to spend, if I had to spend that time, is to really analyze and assess what their problems are. I'll certainly tell them what I believe their problems are, and depending on the severity of it, there may be a quick fix, that a minor adjustment that could open up, a world of benefit to them. But I don't like to necessarily give too many changes. Do you think that that's something similar to what you might like to do, is to really sort of identify what their core issues are, and obviously if there is something appropriate that you can help them with in the interim, without having to go into a much broader time frame, or is there something else that you typically like to do if you only had 10 minutes with a student or an individual that walked up to you on the range, let's say? What would you say, or what would you advise them to get the most out of that time?
Well, you hit it exactly what I would do, Ted. There'd be a couple of questions I'd ask them, first of all, and if they said, do you got 10 minutes, I'd said, what is it you feel that you do that can be fixed in 10 minutes in the first place? But secondly, what are you trying to do? And I said, with that being the question, then let me see what you're doing. We'll identify what the problem is, and then I'll let you know how much time that's going to take for you to get it down. It might be 10 minutes. It might be 10 days. It might be 10 months. But I'm going to certainly take them in that time frame and watch what they're doing, identify where the root problem is, and then explain to them, this is why you do what you do, and here's how you fix it. That can easily be done in 10 minutes. It doesn't take that long. And so that way, then you can tell them and say, hey, now, with that being said, here's how I would go about getting this changed. And then you can sort of lead them into a situation where you can get them back and spend a little bit more time with them. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm not going to give them much because, there's not much you would want to concentrate on in 10 minutes anyway. You want, especially as John said, if they're getting ready to go play, then you got to keep it as simple as possible. But if they're just looking to figure out what they're doing, I think, yes, indeed, in that 10 minutes, you can really identify what the problem is and then explain to them, what the correction is going to be, and, here's how you go about it. Yeah,
and I think ideally, in 10 minutes, they can hit a few shots, maybe a half a dozen shots, and usually within that time frame, you're going to get a pretty good idea, maybe not everything, but you're going to get a pretty good idea where their problems are. We've all faced this scenario where, maybe somebody's got a corporate event coming up the next month, or maybe even a couple of weeks, or even next week, and they don't want to look bad. So they want something to, as John put, some fairy dust to sprinkle on them to help them navigate through, their corporate event or their club championship, in the weeks to come. And it's just not going to happen. You can certainly do some things to help soften the blow a little bit or lessen the pain. But, it's not going to serve their best interest. So I think, to isolate and find out what the problems are and, let them know what, issues you're seeing. And if they really want to work on it, then, again, this is where we want to extend an invitation to come back at a later point. But to sort of, throw out a quick fix in a few minutes is more than likely, in many cases, going to do more harm, I think, than good. Because now they're going to start tinkering around and saying, well, did he say this or did he do that? And all of a sudden they're having a bad round, and you're the guy that they're going to blame. So I don't like to do too much in that, if I'm faced with a situation like that, other than to really assess and find out what the root cause is. Because once you understand what the root cause is, then usually it's a pretty simple fix. It's just a matter of whether they want to make the commitment or time and spend the time to come out and work on that. But very interesting answers, very very similar, but some differences as well. John, since we're kind of reflecting on the season, you both talked about some of the improvements that you've seen with some of your students and players this year. But I think, part of the reflection process is for us to reflect on our own self, if you will, and sort of look at some of the things that maybe we're taking away or what we've learned from our students that we hope will translate into making us a better teacher for the next season. So each of you are going to give you a couple of minutes to talk about that. So John, let's start with you. What did you take away from your students or learn from your students, if you will, that you're going to reflect on over the next little while, and when you get revved up for even though technically I know you're still working now, but when you're looking forward to the new season, what are you going to do to help make yourself that much better?
A lot. That's a great question. It's something I do. I literally mark my calendar every 2 months to self-reflect in many different ways. And one of those ways, to put it in a simple bullet point, is what am I learning from my clientele? And I would tell you, resiliency is one of the things I've seen, not only on the golf course and at the practice facility, but with life in general. Some of the ways people are making pivots to not only continue to do their jobs and or own their businesses, but to succeed at those things. The resiliency, to be able to be, the ability to be able to be flexible and what's the word I'm looking for? To be more adaptive, more accepting of needing to be adaptive has really resonated. And what it's allowed me to do is to see my coaching practice from a totally different light, expand it in a couple of different ways to say, you know what, I can be as resilient as they are. And I need to be. They look to me for leadership, and it's up to me to provide that inspirational leadership. And when I see it in my clientele, it just makes me more motivated to do it. The other thing I'm continually learning from my clientele, especially in the COVID era, is the ability to pivot the communication gap. And what I mean by that is sort of what we talked about earlier, as far as asking if someone's prepared for a lesson, what do they want to accomplish in a series of lessons or a golf school or what have you. The ability to communicate those particular desires has really come out louder and clearer than ever before, which has caused me to look at some of the ways I communicate, whether it's writing a piece for Golf Tips Magazine, writing a blog post, doing a video, and how can I make my communication more clear so it resonates, not necessarily to a small group, but to a bigger group. And it's not necessarily a pinpointed bigger group. I would tell you the bigger group is, can I get more golfers just to get out and play? I've gone from more of a coaching specific things to a more growth of the game type of outlook. I think COVID's inspired us all to grow the game a little bit more, and it's doing so organically, but we have to be able to prop it up. And when I'm seeing my clientele make the pivots that they're doing, it's definitely inspiring for me as a coach to continue to try to lead them in the direction they want to go in as a golf coach. But I'm learning some things that they're doing that's actually helping me become a better coach as well as become a better entrepreneur. It's really been an eye-opening year that way.
Yeah, some great points, John. I think, Pete, one of the things, and this is really anytime you're interacting, whether it be with the public generally or, potential clients, if you're running a business or, if you're a golf instructor or coach, is you've got to have and be willing to listen. And I think one of the things that we learn as human beings, that the more we listen to what the other person is telling us, the better prepared we're going to be in providing whatever product or service that they may be looking for. And I think one of the biggest mistakes, obviously, that we make is when we don't listen. And I'm hoping, as we talked about earlier, that moving forward post-COVID into the next season, that we really listen to what the students want, because they're going to guide us. They're going to tell us, as John's suggesting, what it is they're really looking for, and we have to be willing and ready to adapt to what's obviously an ever-changing world. And I think that starts with being a good listener. So as you reflect, Pete, back on your season thus far, as we get ready to sort of wrap up here in 2020, what did you take away, do you think? Anything different? Obviously, maybe some similar things to what John said, but anything different that you took away that you're going to learn from and make you that much better in 2021?
Well, I think first and foremost is everybody's ability to adapt. I mean, everybody's had to adapt to, a whole new, a living of what's going on with 2020 and COVID and everything else. So, people have become very adaptive to their environments and what they're doing. I think one of the things that I've done when I had a couple of new players as far as the University of Missouri women's team, and so it was a new, renewed purpose of sticking with the basics. Not getting into too much difficulty and keeping it very simple as to, here it is, ABC, this is what's going on. And then, as I've always tried to do, is to try to make the message more clear with less words. How can I get it as clear as possible, saying as little as possible? And then I've always, as we've talked about before, you use a question test, you answer every question with a question. And so, or every answer they give you with a question, so that you can continue to get more information. And I always like to start the lesson off that way. How's your day? What's going on? How's the family, the kids? How, what's your day been like? And I told you that story before, where I had one guy that had such a bad day. We just picked up the clubs and went straight to the bar. We didn't hit any balls, so it wasn't going to work. So, it's just one of those days, you know how it is. And he had more fun doing that than hitting golf balls. So, sometimes you just have to, as you said, listen to what's going on, and the adaptations there can make or break what you're doing with them. So, I think more than anything else, it was a renewed, for me, a renewed purpose back to just keeping it very, very simple, basic, simple cause and effect, and then not straying away too much in the details.
Yeah, that's an excellent point as well. I think, really emphasize on keeping it simple. I think sometimes in every walk of life, but particularly in golf here over the last, decade or so, we've really at times as an industry have made it very, very difficult. And, I don't want to harp on technology, but, technology is wonderful and it has its place and purpose. But sometimes, there have been moments when maybe we've relied too much on some of that technology to sort of drive where we want the industry to go. And, I think people are have recognized that. I think instructors have recognized that and have looked at technology in a whole different way. And, certainly are using it to their advantage, but also recognizing that, you have to put it in the right perspective. Sometimes, you might have to dial it back a little bit. Maybe that individual is getting a little bit overwhelmed, and then again, as I mentioned earlier, frustration kicks in. All right, I want to talk about this. Is a little bit different. This question I'm going to ask you now than I've asked in the past. We've talked about marketing, golf marketing and social media, and we've talked about it how sometimes we've seen things that have been very critical of golf and whatnot. So I want to ask this different. There is a lot of golf marketing. and definitely a lot of golf social media that's been presented to the average golfer out there. In your opinion, John, I'm going to start with you, and this sort of goes back to what I was just talking about a moment ago, but in your opinion, are we overwhelming golfers out there with too much information? And if so, why? And if not, why not?
Great question. I was in the middle of transitioning my business, and I have a bonus daughter helping me now with social media, and she accused me of overwhelming people the past month, but I've had a lot to talk to them about. But at the same time, I've been excited about what I'm doing. I think behind any excitement, we all want to share that excitement, whether it's a tool, a product, a service, a trip, a person, a golf course, a new ball. It really doesn't make a difference. We're all excited to share it. From a marketing standpoint of view, obviously, you've got to get someone's attention for them to pull the trigger to make that purchase. I would say in general, the average golfer is so heavily marketed with product, they forget where the best ROI of their money and time is, and that is into themselves. So it's rare you'll ever see me market a product, and when I do, I 100% believe in it. I use it. It's not an endorsement. I don't get paid to endorse it, so it's genuine. But what you do see me market is myself and my services, because it's an investment in my client's self, into their own ROI. And I think when people start looking at marketing that way regarding golf and ask the simple question, will this provide me return on investment that allows me to be a better person and a better golfer, versus will this investment save me 2 strokes? What's 2 strokes in the bigger picture? Well, unless you're betting a few $1,000s at your club every day, then it's not really a lot. The other thing you got to look at marketing is what's the common theme? What's the common message that's being given to you, whether it's a product, a service, or whatnot, and determine, hey, do I fit into that team? There's marketers doing research out there all the time to try to fit into everybody's theme, but you can't please everybody. I know I can't. I know Pete and you can't. But when you look at the marketing of golf products and golf services, really ask yourself the question, is this me? Is this something that I'll have fun being a part of? Is this something that, if it stood alone all by itself in my front yard, would I be embarrassed to have it in my front yard? And I heard that from a client years ago about marketing. Imagine this thing in your front yard, and if it stood there alone because you bought into the marketing and you put it out there because you bought into it, would you be embarrassed that it'd still be there literally a day later? And I think if you look at that kind of perspective from a marketing standpoint of view, if you're a consumer of golf products and services, you'll make better decisions for yourself.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Pete, I use myself as an example. I mean, we all promote, we all advertise. I use social media to promote the shows. I use it to promote the magazine now and other things that that I work on golf related. But I can tell from personal experience, and I'm not going to name names, but I've gotten emails from other publications as much as 4 or 5 times a day, different email blasts and whatnot. And then on top of that, now I'm receiving, or have been for a little while, I've actually had to get to a point where it's frustrated me so much that I've had to go in and spend 20 minutes unsubscribing, from all of these different golf marketing companies and so forth. So as much as I love the game, even I'm getting a little bit overwhelmed with so much golf marketing. So I pose the same question to you. And again, I'm sure you have some similar views to John's, but maybe you can add some others. Do we need to be more conscious of how we're marketing? I mean, obviously people that are on our lists and whatnot are interested in the products or maybe interested in the services, but do we have to be careful that we're not overwhelming them with not just product, but even too much instruction? You know, if they're getting video lessons from us every single day, and maybe sometimes a couple of days, you know, in order to market and so forth, you know, and then 100 other people are doing the same thing, are we doing ourselves a disservice, do you think?
Well, as John said, it is a great question. I mean, obviously there's tons of you know, products and things that are out there. You know, you just look at YouTube, and the amount of instruction that's on YouTube is unbelievable. And yeah, I think to a certain extent there is too much. But I think, you know, we as teachers and coaches can sort of, with our own people, get them to understand how it more fits to them, and how they can take the blast of all the social media and all the marketing and you know, as John said, how does it fit them? How does it fit into what they're doing? I think we can train them to do that, but the masses have just been bombarded. There's no question. I mean, I've been on a few things where someone will post a swing and oh my goodness, the you know, they're asking for advice, and it's unbelievable what is said. And it's I mean, if you tried to do it, you'd swing 400 different ways because there's 400 different fixes for what one video was put out there. So yeah, it's right. To me there is way too much of it, and I think it you know, it's funny you said that about unsubscribing. I'm trying to do a reset on my own stuff. For goodness, I've been doing that for forever, trying to get rid of all those crazy things that keep popping into my emails. But yeah, there's so many of them. It's just, you know, you one time say, hey, that looks pretty cool, and then the next thing you know, you get 5,000 emails. Yeah, I think it's been overdone. You know how many different driver heads come out? I mean, just stuff keeps coming out and coming out and coming out. And I understand, you know, everybody's trying to make a living. You know, it was funny you were talking about, you know, all the videos that are out there, because I remember my nephew who was in video production for a big university. He said if your videos are more than 45 seconds, scrub them. They're not going to listen any longer. You know, and there's a lot of truth to that. Mm-hmm. You know, so what it means is you got to get your point across and get it a point quick. You know, but yeah, I think there's too much information out there. I think that the golfing masses have been overwhelmed. And you know, I wanted to make one point you said about technology earlier. You know, I've always said as long as the technology doesn't replace instinct, I'm good with it. But too many players have taken over their instinct. So another
I would agree with
they're getting.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I agree as well with the social media. There's different sides of it. You know, one of the pet peeves I have, and you know, is, and I understand why they do it. It's a way of generating revenue and so forth. But you know, I've received emails, email blasts as I call them, from multitude of golfing organizations that I know I've never subscribed to. So I know that more than likely, a lot of the reason is the lists are being sold and passed around and whatnot from place to place. So once you get on one list, you're now on for, you know, 3 or 4 or half a dozen or maybe even a dozen other companies. And, you know, I don't have an issue with somebody reaching out to me, you know, with their solicitation. But when it gets to the point where you're getting bombarded on a daily basis, in some cases, not all of them, but some of them, as I said, one of the publications, I'm not going to name names, I'm not going to do that, but, you know, I'm getting on average, you know, 4 or 5 a day. Now, I did sign up for that one, but I can guarantee you I didn't sign up for 4 or 5 a day. And, you know, I understand the reason they're doing it. You know, it's a marketing thing. They're trying to get out there. They're trying to, you know, sell the magazine and get readers interested and engaged. But when you're bombarding people with too much information, there comes a point in time where it becomes a turnoff. And people will stop. You know, it's the same thing with technology. To your point, Pete, technology is there to assist and to help, but it's not there to replace good instincts. And when people feel that all you're doing is, as I've said before, hooking up to a couple of electrodes and flicking the switch to see what's going on, people start to get a little bit nervous, and they're saying, well, wait a minute, is he really paying attention to what I'm doing, or is he just looking at the monitor all the time? And people want that interaction, and I think as golf instructors, we owe it to them. Again, I'm not trying to criticize technology. There's a lot of great products we've discussed on the show in the past, and I think they have a place and a purpose for it. But I think we cannot rely too heavily on it and depend on it so much to the point that we're neglecting some of the student needs. Great answer to that question, both of you. I've got one final question for both of you to sort of wrap things up. And John, I guess I'll just keep the same order. I'll come back to you, and then Pete, I'll let you finish off with your answer. For our listeners out there who are new, particularly, but this certainly can apply to anybody, but new to this season, maybe they've never played before. COVID has put them in a position where they've needed to get out, as I mentioned earlier, and they've found their way to the golf course. John, if you were going to put together a checklist you would want to put together to help give them the best start, the best chance at getting out there and learning this great game, what might that checklist be from you?
Well, you made me feel guilty about a shameless plug to answer this question, so I guess I better go in a different direction.
No, go ahead. Go for it.
No, it's really simple. Go have fun. Go have fun. Enjoy the company you're with. Enjoy what you're doing. Another piece of the checklist is go out with zero expectations. A lot of times I'll see golfers go out with a lot of expectations of what they think they can do without a realistic understanding of what they really can do. And I have a phrase I've used several times on this program throughout the years: expectations lead to nothing but failures. So fun, no expectations. As far as brand new to a facility, chuck the rules out the door. We had a conversation about this on this program not too long ago. Just take the rules, chuck them out the door. Be courteous, follow the etiquette, be respectful of other people. But if you're in the bunker and if you can't get it out in 2 tries, pick it up and toss it. Life's too short to not be having fun at what you're doing. And when you look at all the other sports that are out there, there's gateways, there's entryways into it. And the only entryway into golf, there's Topgolf now, which is wonderful. And it is a gateway into the sport. But if you're wanting to learn to actually play the game, you have to get out on the golf course and be fearless of what that golf course represents. So if we took down all the barriers of penalty areas, and you can't roll the ball around or clean it off, or you're in a bunker and you can't get it out and you're frustrated, but you can toss it out. There's a lot of good to that. And what it allows a brand new person to understand is not only will the game accept me, they'll accept me as I am right now and give me a chance to feel the passion that everybody else out here is feeling. It looks contagious. I want to get infected by this, but with all the rules and all this and all that, why am I wasting my time? That to me still remains a hurdle, COVID or no COVID, is the ability to knock down those barriers. And I think the other thing to realize is a golf course is a business. It's just not an open field, an open park that provides you an avenue to, I'll use this phrase from a marketing standpoint of view, what happens on the golf course doesn't necessarily stay on the golf course, unlike what happens in Vegas for you. There are certain things that you have to be respectful of and realize that it takes a tremendous amount of money, regardless of the condition that the facility is in to maintain it in any way, shape, or you to be able to use it. And I think if you look at some things that way and realize it's a very self-challenging game and get ready to challenge yourself for as many holes as you're capable of, I think you will fall in love with the game.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Pete, we've got, as we've talked about tonight, we've got a lot of new people to this game. And, it's some have never been around this game. There's a lot of unknown expectations. And, John's talked about, sort of leaving them at the door and just going out there and having fun. What would your checklist be or has been this year with some of the new students coming out or new golfers in general? What might be some of the items on your checklist?
Well, I like what John said. Obviously, having fun is a piece of it. And, when you're out on the golf course, and there's difficulties, just pick it up and move on. And, the one thing I would say to them is don't hesitate to ask for help because, between the golf professional staff and everybody else who's out there and all the workers, if you're new to it, and, I've always said it's never a dumb question if you don't know what the answer is. So don't hesitate to reach out, even if it's with your golf game. Have a conversation with the golf pro. You'd be amazed at how much they can put you at ease and have a huge path to bring you into the game to make it, fun, enjoyable, relaxing, a great learning environment. So, don't hesitate to reach out and call. I had a bunch of them this year to me that just reached out and called and just wanted to talk instruction at the beginning before coming in to take it. It's a great thing to do. You can learn a lot about a person with a conversation. You can get them more comfortable with what you're doing, and and answer their questions. Listen. And I think if they're not hesitant to reach out, I think it's going to be a more enjoyable atmosphere for them, and I think they'll start to understand there's more things available to them. And I do like what John said when you're talking about a facility. I mean, if you're going to your favorite place to eat or meet some friends, I mean, treat that place in the golf course the same. It's a business as well, and they're doing their best to try to provide something to you, and so in return, do your best to provide back to them. And I think in that case, each way it'll make it more enjoyable for everybody. But no, I'd say if they can just be comfortable enough to reach out and ask questions, I think it'll be a great learning experience for them.
Yeah, I would say just very quickly, I've got a short checklist myself, and one of the things that I do is I have everybody that comes ask this question of themselves, and that is, why do I want to play? And I think when you understand that, and I'll give you a quick example. I mean, am I just wanting? Is it something that I think might be fun to do or challenging to do? And I just looking at it from a recreational standpoint. Am I interested in maybe being competitive? Depending obviously where you're at. So understanding why you want to play the game first and foremost can help guide you in the direction you want to go. Also, it's good to reach out, before you reach out to that professional, is if you know somebody in your own family or friends or business associates that currently play golf, ask them if they're taking lessons, because obviously at some point you're going to need to do that, and find out who they're working with. And that doesn't mean that you have to commit to that, but that's a good place to start. If you're living in the same area, what pro are you working with? So I like to them, to sort of do a little bit of homework, as I said, get prepared, so that when they make that first call or they're reaching out, they've got a general understanding. First and foremost, they've answered the question, hopefully, why they're there in the first place, why they want to play, or why they have a sudden interest in the game. Is it because if in the case of a spouse, if their spouse plays golf and I know for a lot of women, their husbands play golf, so they would like to play golf to have something else that they can do together and share some quality time together. And on a side note, I know I've mentioned this before, if you are doing it for that reason, I would certainly recommend that if you are going to use the pro that your husband's using, that you do it independently from one another, and that you have a clear understanding that you're not going to be there to help one another, that's what the coach or the teaching professional is doing. That's some sage advice, I think, for couples. But then also, I want you to be prepared. I want on that checklist, I want you to, as Pete, as you just talked about, is maybe put down some questions. And if you don't know what questions to ask, that's okay. Talk to somebody who is familiar with golf. What questions should I be asking the professional? What questions should I be asking about golf? And if you jot those questions down and get maybe somebody to help you initially, you're less likely to feel silly, especially if you're not familiar with some of the golf jargon that's out there. Talk to somebody that plays and get a little bit of help from them and guiding that. But the first part of it is to understand why you want to play in the first place. And I think once you've answered that question, many of the other items on the checklist that both John and Pete that you've put together, I think will sort of fall into place. And I think those are equally as good to have on the checklist as well. But first and foremost, understanding why you're there to begin with. Guys, as always, I'm going to give you an opportunity to share with the listeners the best way if they want to reach out or get in touch, or if there's anything special going on over the next little while, since this is going to be the last time that we'll be together but before I do that, I'm going to let Pete go first, actually, this time, just for something different. But I want to thank both of you very sincerely for all that you've done over the years with the program, and particularly this last year. It's been difficult for many, many people, but you guys have still managed to hold strong and get out there and do the things that you do to help many of the golfers out there. But you've always brought your best to the show, and I appreciate it very much. And I'm excited to be moving into season 9 next year and having you guys back on the panel. So thank you very much for giving of your time and again, bringing your best to the program. Pete, go ahead. What's the best way that the folks can reach out to you? And if you have anything that you want special that you want to share, and then John.
Well, Ted, always thanks to you. It's what you do for this segment and leading it and bringing all of us on. It's great fun for us to come on and do this. So a special thanks to you. And John, it's always a pleasure, buddy. I always like being on with you. We always have a great conversation. I'm actually making a switch going into 2021. I've joined the teaching staff with the St. Louis Golf Lessons here in St. Louis. So it's a little bit different scenario for me. It's going to give me a few more venues to teach at. For right now, they can get a hold of me at plainsimplegolf.com. It's PLANE. That is going to change, but for right now, they can reach out there, and then anything going forward will come out of that. But some new things for me in 2021, I think will be very exciting, and some more places to be at. So I think they'll keep track and keep up to date, and then you'll see what's going on.
That sounds great, and be sure to update me on your email changes and things as they come due. So make sure I'm in the loop. That's one email I'll be happy to receive from you, Pete. John, what about yourself?
You bet.
Pete, it's been a pleasure this year. I think we've made each other laugh both behind the scenes before the program, during, and well afterwards. And,
yes,
it's always a pleasure being on with you. And by all means, if you ever need a laugh, give me a call. I'll try to come up with something for you as you go through your new endeavor. And best of luck with that. I think you're going to be a tremendous asset to that facility, and I hope they do appreciate what you bring to the table. Ted, I'm going to ditto what Pete says, that what you bring to the industry is so much different. And there are some people that if they just took the time and listened to a on-demand portion of your podcast, that they'd understand that it's real, it's honest, it's genuine, and we're not holding anything back. We're not hiding anything from anybody. And a lot of times the game does that in a lot of different ways, whether it's the marketing messages or what have you. And it was a great question that you brought up tonight, and you wouldn't necessarily hear that on another podcast. My hat's off to you for 8 great seasons, and I'm always honored to be part of this, and I really appreciate what you've been able to provide for me over the years, and going forward with Golf Tips Magazine and assisting you with that. I'm pleased as punch, and I couldn't be happier. As I always tell people, the way to get a hold of me is John at John Hughes Golf, johnhughesgolf.com, at John Hughes Golf with Twitter, John Hughes Golf with Facebook. I mean, that's all you got to do is John Hughes Golf, and you're going to find me. But I am going to make a shameless plug from a marketing standpoint of view. Please, everybody, just bear with me. But this helps everybody here. COVID taught me the resilience and the pivoting, as I had talked about before, and I announced this in November, but I'm very, very pleased to be officially announcing on this program the launch of Instant Golf Improvement, which is not based on hooks. It's not based on fictitious myths. It's not based on Cheech and Chong's magic dust. It's based on tried and true fundamentals. It's based on things that you can implement in less than 2 or 3 minutes sometimes that can actually make a difference, even without asking what are you trying to accomplish. It's just based on facts. And for everybody out there who listens to the podcast, I want to give you an opportunity to join Instant Golf Improvement. Really simple, instantgolfimprovement.com. And if you use the coupon code GolfVideoTips, you're going to receive 25% off the yearly subscription price and, drumroll please, a free 1-year subscription to Golf Tips Magazine. That coupon code again, Golf Video Tips, all capitalized, at instantgolfimprovement.com. And again, Ted, thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving this lonely old guy at 1.7 years ago a platform to just be heard. Thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate it. And let me just add very quickly, John, for those of you that, whether you subscribe or plan on subscribing to Golf Tips Magazine, as I mentioned at the beginning, John is now a senior editor as well as one of the top 25 instructors and on the golf advisory staff as well. And he's got a great series that comes out each issue. It's a bi-monthly issue magazine, so it's 6 issues a year. It's the Milestone series, and I'm really excited. He's already done the January, February issue. Is already out. In fact, it's already gone to the printer, and will be hitting newsstands December 22nd. And he's been hard at work at the March, April issue, which will be the second issue of the 2021 season. So make sure you, whether you're a subscriber, if you aren't a subscriber yet, you should subscribe, and he give you a great way to do that. If not, go to your local newsstand or Barnes & Noble and Books A Million and pick up a copy. It's I guarantee you're going to enjoy it, and you're going to find John's Milestone instructional series in there, a regular feature in Golf Tips Magazine. Thank you guys both very, very much. And as I've said many, many times in this show is not about me. I just happen to be the guy with the microphone. It's about you guys. It's about this industry, something that I enjoy very, very much. And I want you guys both to have a great Christmas and a happy holiday. Stay safe. Spend time safely, of course, with your families. And I will see you guys next year here on Golf Talk Live's Coach's Corner. Thanks, guys, and God bless.
Awesome. Thanks, Ted.
Happy Hanukkah, everybody. Merry Christmas.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. See you guys.
All right. That was John Hughes and Pete Buchanan here on the Coach's Corner panel, a special Coach's Corner panel. We took a sort of reflection back on the 2020 season, and hope you enjoyed that. And if you're just tuning in just now, the recorded version or the on-demand section of the program will be coming available here just in a little while, so bear with it. But if you go to blogtalkradio.com Facebook.com/Golf Talk Live, or just simply type in Golf Talk Live in the search key. You can listen to the on-demand section in its entirety. One other quick note before I let everybody go. A great product that was introduced to me during this difficult time by my good friend Byron Casper, who coincidentally is going to be my very special guest on the last show next week. September 17th will be the last show of the 2020 season before I take an extended break, and I'll give you all the details next week. He'll be joining me as my special guest following next week's Coach's Corner panel. But he introduced me to a really great product. Here's a short audio clip, and then I'll reconfirm the special offer.
2020 hasn't been exactly what any of us expected, but the one thing we have in common is the need to cleanse and stay clean. Doctor recommended and approved, Golf Nix is a hand and skin cleanser that can be used daily. Clean your hands, shoes, clubs, your golf cart, and use it around your home. It leaves no sticky residue and moisturizes your skin. Keep clean and avoid those pesky germs that exist all around us today. Golf Nix is your natural solution to keep clean. Check it out at golfnix.com. That's golfnix.com.
Okay, and for those of you that want to take advantage, we've got a special coupon code that you can use. It's Golf Tips 2021. If you at the checkout, if you put in promo code Golf Tips 2021, you will save 10% off your order. Go to golfnix.com. It's a great product. I have some samples here that I've been using. We've all got to do our best to keep clean and whatnot, and there's some great products that hand sanitizer and so forth. Go to golfnix.com. They've got a great brand new website that you can check out. You can order right online, and just remember when you're checking out your order, make sure you enter promo code GolfTips2021 and save 10% off your order. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you for joining me on a special Coach's Corner edition of Golf Talk Live, and I will be back next week, December 17th, for my last show of the season with another great panel discussion to lead off, and my very good friend, Mr. Byron Casper, son of the legendary Billy Casper, will be joining me as my special guest next week, so I hope you'll tune in. Thanks, everybody. God bless, and we'll see you next week right here on Golf Talk Live. Thanks for listening to this evening's broadcast of Golf Talk Live. Remember to tune in each week at blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live. If you can't join us live, check out the on-demand section for previously aired broadcasts, or listen on any of the following social media platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, CastBox, TalkStream Live, and of course, Spotify. To get updates on future shows and upcoming guests, be sure to visit the show's Facebook page, Golf Talk Live Blog. You can also follow me on Twitter at Ted and Buck CEO. Remember to join me live each week for another great broadcast of Golf Talk Live. See you next time. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.